Good evening. We'd like to go ahead and call the City of Tuscaloosa Zoning Board of Adjustments hearing to order. Today's date is December 18th, 2024. It's 5 o'clock. We'd like to begin with introduction to the board members. I'm Michelle Coley, the chair, starting with Mr. Rollins.
Paul Rollins, Jr.
Tim Gillum.
Marty Hammer.
Joseph Eatman, Sr.
And our supernumerary are Mary Catherine Holt and Marty, well, he's not a supernumerary anymore. I'd like to introduce the city staff from the Department of Urban Development, Mr. Jonathan Bowen, Neighborhood Resources Coordinator. Oh, we have our, I guess I'm supposed to introduce you, Zach? I don't have to. From the Office of the City Attorney, Ms. Kim King, Associate City Attorney. Kevin Jones, helping with the video production in the back. And Ms. Angie's with us for just a few minutes. Say hi. Now, the purpose of the zoning of Board of Adjustments is the Board of Adjustments does not have the authority to enact zoning laws or special exceptions, nor does the board have authority to rule on claims of equal protection of the law or the fairness or unfairness of any zoning ordinance. Now, by virtue of state law and city ordinances, the purpose of the ZBA is as follows: to hear appeals from decisions of the zoning officer of the city, to grant special exceptions to the zoning code in accordance with the terms as established by the city council therein, grant variances from the terms of the zoning code when, owing to the special conditions, a literal enforcement of the code would result in unnecessary hardship. Now, no one factor determines what is an unnecessary hardship, but all relevant factors, when taken together, must indicate that the plight of the property in question is unique in that it cannot be put reasonably to a conforming use because of the limitations imposed upon it by reason of its classification in a specified zone. Now, my working definition of unnecessary hardship is as follows: the property cannot be put to any reasonable use under its current zoning classification. It must be a unique and peculiar difficulty relating to the property of a serious and significant nature. Now, it must relate to the property and not any personal issues. Now, this includes economic, financial gain or loss. A variance may not be granted where the property owner merely suffers a financial loss of a kind that is common to all the property owners in the area. Now, circumstances that are not hardships, self-inflicted or self-created, inconvenient or personal. Now, subdivision covenants and HOA regulations, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, by virtue of state law and City of Tuscaloosa ordinance, does not have any jurisdiction or authority to consider, interpret, and or enforce any term or condition of subdivision covenants and or homeowner association rules or regulations. Now, these matters are therefore not relevant areas of inquiry by the board on any petition. Such covenants or regulations are between the private parties involved and not the ZBA. That having been said, any decision made by the ZBA on any particular case does not necessarily preclude the enforcement of such subdivision covenants and or HOA rules or regulations by other lawful means. Now, this is a public hearing. It is being recorded, videotaped, and is streaming live on the city's website, Facebook, as well as local cable TV. Proper decorum, civility, and respect for others is required at all times. There is a sign-up sheet that were outside for public comment. Up to 4 speakers will be given the opportunity to speak in favor of the petition, and up to 4 speakers will be given the opportunity to speak in opposition to a petition. All speakers will have up to 5 minutes, unless the board votes to allow a longer time. Now, when you are at the podium, please speak directly into the microphone and state your name and address for the record. All comments should be directed to the board. No questions or comments are to be directed to city staff. Now, I would ask city staff to confirm for the record that all the appropriate and required public and individual property owner notices for each case upon the docket of petition now before the board have been made in accordance with the law.
Yes, it has.
Okay. Now, the following procedure will be followed for each petition. This hearing is an opportunity for the petitioner to present their case. for the public to inquire and make their views known about the petition, and the board members to gather relevant facts before making its decision. Now, city staff will introduce the petition and present facts and information to the board concerning the same. The petitioner or petitioner's designated representative will be asked to make comments and answer questions from the board. The petitioner will have up to 10 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. The 4 members of the public that are in support of the petition and the 4 members of the public that are in opposition to the petition who signed up to speak will then be afforded the opportunity to make inquiries and comments. Petition response. At the close of the public comments, the petitioner will be asked to respond to comments if necessary. Any rebuttal will be allowed up to 2 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. Now, the chair may then permit the public to respond, but only to any new issues raised by the petitioner in the rebuttal. Any response will be allowed up to 2 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. Now, at the close of public comment, or once the board is satisfied that it has received all relevant information on a petition, the chairman will close further comment or discussion, and the board will then discuss the matter. Now, the chair will read into the record the motion to approve the request along with any conditions set by the board, and the board members will commence voting. 4 votes are required to approve any petition, not a simple majority of the board. I'll say that again. 4 votes are required to approve any petition, not just a simple majority of the board. Leave the signs in your yard. The staff will pick up the signs as soon as possible. Now, any party that's aggrieved by any final judgment or decision of such Board of Zoning Adjustments may within 15 days thereafter appeal therefrom to the Circuit Court by filing with such board a written notice of appeal specifying the judgment or decision from which the appeal is taken. Now, the board members have had a chance to review tonight's agenda items. Do any members have a conflict of interest with any of the cases on tonight's agenda?
Yes, I do. CBA 12424.
Okay. Anybody else? When that comes up, Mr. Gillen will recuse himself. Are there any changes to the agenda or anything been withdrawn or continued?
There's none.
Okay. Let's see. We have our April synopsis. I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Second.
Voting on Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
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 Synopses are approved. All right, Ms. Kim King, any status of pending cases? You're going to handle that, Jonathan, when he comes.
Yep, we'll do that after the update.
He's going to do it right when you come up?
Yeah, we'll do it after OCA's update.
Yeah. Okay.
There are no updates. We still have 1 currently pending case on appeal, and there are no current updates on it.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jonathan, we're ready to get started.
All right, well, good afternoon, board. So we will move into a vote to elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson. This will need to be a nomination followed by a motion, second, and then a vote.
I'd like to nominate Michelle Coley as chair and Tim Gilliam as vice chair.
Second. Second.
All right, so do we vote?
Yes,
Do Tim and I vote in this?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Voting with Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
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 Vice chair and chair approve unanimously.
All right, there is one case that is requesting to withdraw since this was notified to staff after the mailing deadline. This will have to be voted on. They are not here in the audience tonight, so this is ZBA 12524. We will need a vote to accept their withdrawal.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, voting with Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
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 Okay, it's withdrawn.
All right, and then we'll move into our unfinished business from last month. So ZBA 12024, LaShonetta Motley petitions for a variance from the residential setback regulations and the accessory structure regulations on the property at 1636 43rd Avenue, zoned R2, Council District 1. So here we have the zoning of the property as well as that aerial view. And these are a couple of the images that we had from last month. The petitioner, they provided just a couple of site photos to show the progress, show a little bit more in detail what's going on the property itself. We're still looking at those applicable regulations for yards and usable open space, as well as the accessory structure regulations. The request essentially remains the same, variance to construct a single-family dwelling and an accessory structure. This parcel is located on a corner lot, so it does have those 2 front yards and 2 side yards. Per the petitioner, the current setbacks lessen the amount of space for them to be able to build and design a functional structure. By granting this variance, it would allow for the parcel to magnify the aesthetics of the current neighborhood. So this is our updated site plan. I have a couple of images that show it a little bit closer, more in detail. So essentially, the structures that you see on the site plan, they have remained the same, but the size has changed from the previous month. So you have your single-family structure. We'll go through one by one. And then you've got your accessory structure located to the right. And then down at the bottom, this is not a structure, but it is the covered or uncovered patio that you will see in this next image. This is just a closer up to show what those setbacks are and the reason behind the variance request. So you have 8 feet here. Let me change the color on that. 8 feet, 6 feet, 10, 9 in the rear, which this would be treated as a side yard. That 9 feet is actually in compliant with the code. But then you have 2 feet over on the right side. So this is a picture just to orient. So that existing structure, that photo on the right, that is essentially the uncovered patio or deck that would remain. And then this is an image of the accessory structure, so that accessory structure would be placed here.
And this part of the yard is still considered front yard because of the way the yard.
Yeah, so essentially the front yard, and it may be, but this is a front yard, and then you have a front yard here. So really, from a setback perspective, it would be 20 feet back from those property lines. And then running along the side, you would have your side yards. Those obviously are not accurate drawings, but that essentially shows the front yard from the side yard.
So for the single-family structure,
Mm-hmm.
it has 2 front yards, and there's only one of the front yards that they go inside the setback on.
That's correct, yep. So this front yard located going along this property line, it would need to be set back 20 feet. And from the corners, there's varying measurements, but those do not meet those setbacks for that front yard.
And if there was a side setback, what would it?
The side setbacks would be 9 feet, so they do meet the side setback to the north. We would treat that as a side yard, and they also meet this side setback. Now, for the accessory structure, they would need to be 5 feet away from that property line, so that's why that 2 foot does not meet the accessory structure ordinance, which would require the additional variance.
But the single-family resident, it hasn't been constructed yet, right?
It has not been constructed
So if
yet.
they scooted it back with the accessory structure, they wouldn't have any issues.
It would be up to the applicant to provide a drawing to show that. It's hard to tell based on the size of the lot what that would look like.
So if we,
So in essence, this can be the issue is having all 3 of these on the property and trying to fit all of these in this box. And you're going to need this to try to do all of this. But it could be done if just maybe one of them wanted to be born.
I think and I will let the applicant speak to that. They may have pitched those ideas or have a draft of that or what that might look like. But in terms of the plan that's before you, that's correct. Those setbacks, there's just a lot of structures and there's not enough room to work with.
Okay. Any more questions for the city?
yeah, I have a few. So
Okay.
with the 20-foot setback, that was post-1970. Okay, so
Yes.
for the houses that are in the neighborhood now, what are their setbacks for the front yard? Are they roughly around 10 feet?
Yep, that's a good question. So we actually looked at, our ordinance allows, and I'm going all the way back to the aerial. So for this front yard located along 43rd Avenue, we have a section of the ordinance that allows this structure to be built somewhat in line with the property to the north. So that's where that exception came from. It's roughly about 20 feet or so. So really the setback, if this house was oriented toward 43rd Avenue, wouldn't necessarily be an issue setback-wise. The issue comes in from 17th Street. We don't have a structure. As you can tell, this one is set back much further. So we're unable to do that, and that front yard exception really only allows us to deal with the properties directly adjacent to that property.
And the true front yard, would that be the 17th Street or the 43rd Avenue side?
The way that we treat it, it's whichever way your house is oriented. So for example, if your house is facing 43rd, that's going to be your primary front yard. If they were facing 17th Street, then we would treat that as your primary front yard. And that's where the current ordinance, and I showed the applicable regulations. Let me get back to that screen. So the applicable regulations for front yard is 20 feet. That is with a 1/3 reduction because of a corner lot. Zoning allows for a third reduction for that secondary front yard. So going backwards to this aerial view, because it's a corner lot, they would get 20 feet because of that 1/3 reduction.
Can we go back to the drawing? If the patio was removed and that accessory structure was moved closer to where that patio is,
If
she
they were,
couldn't do that, could that be considered accessory structure in the front yard?
so the accessory structure, it is considered, so where it's located currently, it's in the side yard. What we would measure to determine if it's in the front yard is from this 43rd. So if it were, for example, outside of 20 feet, if this line represents 20 feet, then it would be outside of that front setback. There are still, and I'll go to those applicable regulations, and I may have to pull that up, but there are still other requirements from an accessory structure regulation that might make that challenging.
Does the city have any issues with it being that close to the street as far as sight lines coming around that curve?
When the Office of City Engineers were looking at it, there was no mention from a site perspective of from here, from over there.
One more question?
What is the block foundation? Is that what is that in relation
Raised
to?
patio, I think.
That's the patio?
That's the patio.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Any more questions for the city? Thank you, Jonathan. LaShonetta Modley?
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm LaShonetta Motley. I reside at 36 Woodcrest Drive, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 35405.
Okay. Explain to us what you're wanting to do.
Well, I wanted to receive a setback variance to help with the difficulty building a functional structure. And also I wanted to petition to have an accessory structure for my home occupation, which I own a publishing company, a literary publishing company, and also a computer repair company. Okay, so at this point, with this new drawing, I'm gonna remove the back. I wanted to remove the back half of the deck to allow room for the accessory So that was the plan for that. didn't know about the 5-foot setback, but if necessary, I would be willing to completely restructure the deck in order to allow room for the accessory structure to meet the side setback. If I moved it up, I would be able to meet the side setback of the 5 feet for the accessory structure. But with the site being being a corner lot and it has 2 front yards, and the terrain and the slope of it, I'm having difficulty designing a functional design with the limited amount of space that I have. It's actually half of the required beginning to build square footage. So that's the problem that I arrived at for the reason why I petitioned.
Any questions for the petitioner?
So if I understood you correctly, you said you're willing to scoot the accessory structure up and shorten this deck patio?
Yes, sir. I had already planned to knock out the back half because we received some vandalism over the past couple weeks. So we was gonna remove the back half. So I have no problem modifying even further in that demolition process to a lot more room. Yes, sir.
I think the biggest issue that's coming up is that we're asking for a variance, and we're saying that you can't do anything else with the property. And so I don't think we're meeting that. I think we can't do what you want to do with the property. I think that what's the biggest issue is probably the accessory structure in wanting to have that and be able to operate the business out of the accessory structure. I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest issues, because I think the single-family dwelling being on the property and then the deck, all that may be able to fit, but I think putting that accessory structure is where the issue is. And for the area being able to, which is, I think that's the second thing that we have to vote on, is that on the special exception to allow the use of, and we're not, that's the thing that's gonna be the holdup. So if you're getting that accessory structure just for the purpose of the business,
Yes, ma'am.
so I think, you know, I can't speak for everybody else, but I think that is an area that's going to be an issue. And I think if you weren't trying to put the accessory structure there, everything else would fit. You would have space.
Even without the accessory structure, that's still, I mean, I guess my problem that I'm still running, the hardship that I'm still running into is being allowed to have space for my company on there. I mean, I still would like to have my home occupation, even the setbacks, even without the accessory structure, I'm still limited within the setbacks. And my question I had, if I got a smaller building, would that help the process, or is just the accessory structure being on that lot with that limited amount of space, is that just gonna hang me up?
Operating a
Continuously.
business in a residential area, this is zoned.
This would be my second time having a business in a residential area.
This is
Yeah,
zoned.
it's zoned residential. For example, the home occupation could be allowed to where no customers come to that location. We do see that like a home office situation. And that, from what Ms. Modley has told us, is what she's looking to do on that site.
But she's going to use the accessory structure, so it would need to be a smaller one to fit within.
I don't mind doing that. That's an option that I have evaluated.
Well, I guess in order to vote on it, we'd have to see the actual drawings of it too, so, I mean,
Still don't know if she got a smaller accessory, how she would shift this house
Right, 'cause she's
around,
got a lot
get
of
it to
room.
fit.
Close to the,
These are all these lines too, all these setbacks.
It'd have to be pretty, I mean.
It would have to be really
You
small.
would either have to remove the accessory structure altogether and just increase the footprint of the house and shift it back.
That's correct.
Or you would decrease the size of the accessory structure down to basically a 12 by 18.
So with you building the house, it looks like you're going to have to, and we can't tell you what to do.
Yes, ma'am.
You do whatever you can do, but you're allowed to have the home business, home occupation business. It's just having all of these 3 structures on this property is not a hardship. That's what you want to do, and so because it's something I want to do that's personal, that doesn't count as a hardship. You could build one building and have it do all the things you want it to do and probably fit enough within the setbacks to get it done.
Yeah, I would say, you're talking about a 700 square foot single family, and then almost 400 square feet of the business part.
Yes.
One way would be to try to combine that together and have a larger home with an office built in. That might be a way.
Yes.
You can put a entrance, since you're building it.
side entrance.
You can do a side entrance or something like that so that it can be done that way. In the patio, like, these are, and I understand, this is your property, you're wanting to be able to do what you want to do on it. But that's not a hardship of wanting to do. It has to be that there's no way to possibly do it with any other way, and you do have another way of doing it. Paul, any other comment?
It seems to be the biggest challenge is that accessory structure.
Yes, sir.
And I agree with fellow board member.
I agree. So it's basically just looking at priorities. We're saying the accessory structure, but it could be also, the simplest thing is removing the deck or patio. And you can take your accessory structure down to a 12 by 20 and slide it down where the patio is. You'll see that room. But
Yes, yes,
trying
sir.
to get 3 pieces on that one small lot is almost impossible.
Because the way it's broken up, see how you have space in between the accessory building and the home? That space right there, if it's all one structure, it looks like you can make it happen by putting it all together. Are you doing the drawings yourself and kind of
I
arranging?
am. I went to college I have a degree in drafting technology. I was shooting to be an architect, so yes, ma'am.
So I would say go back and I know it's like do we vote on it this way or do we need guidance, Lord Attorney?
So my suggestion would be this, and I'm not trying to interpret what the board is talking about right now, so you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying, you've talked a little bit about the next one, which is her home business. If you were to vote and approve her ability to do the home business, but go ahead and vote and deny this first one, the idea would be that she just needs to figure out how to operate, like how to build to accommodate the home business while abiding by the setbacks. Is that kind of where we all, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to.
I would be comfortable with that if you could make arrangements to build. I don't have an issue with you having the business on the property. That's not a problem. Zoning, weigh in?
Yes, so that second request, though, is specifically related to her operating her home business in the accessory structure.
Okay, so she would have to come back and say, okay.
Because if she operates in her home, you wouldn't have to approve that. It would be ICRA, and so we could approve it administratively.
So if it's under the same roof, we wouldn't have to approve it. If you combine everything into one structure and maybe have something, and I'm not saying that will get approved, I'm just saying look at it that way. If you do everything out of one building with maybe an entrance, a different entrance or something, that may get you what you need. Because right now, this is not a hardship.
Okay, I have one question. Do I have to still stay within the 20-foot setbacks? Because it's still a limitation for me. It's still a hardship. That is still within the hardship problem, the 20-foot setback.
I would say that's definitely a hardship, the size of the lot. I do agree with you. There's a lot going on the lot itself, as y'all have mentioned. So I think, that could be a reasonable request if she
I
wanted
think
to
if
look
it's
into
one
that.
structure, and I think it could be a reasonable request, but I think trying to put 3 structures on it and then saying that's a hardship, I think that's not. So if you got it into one and then see what your setbacks look like, then I can see the hardship just because, like you said, the ditch is running along and all of that.
That's right.
So does she need to do a continuance and come back with some? This is the first continuance.
So this is her first continuance. She could continue for one more month. and then after that, it would have to be decided.
So what would you like to do?
I suppose I would like to request a continuance, ma'am.
And I know, I hate to keep doing, but we've had this before, and we finally, the third time they came, we were able to come to some conclusion that, because we want to give you what you know, something that you can work with and, you know, on your property. And so, we need to have a motion for the continuance?
Yes.
A motion for the continuance?
I move that we continue.
Second.
Voting with Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Third time's the charm, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Also, for ZBA 121-24, since it is in connection
Need
with
a
the
continuance?
Yes. If Ms.
Move.
Motley would like to request a
Yes,
continuance.
I would like to
For-
request a continuance as well.
For 121-24, we need a motion?
So move.
Second.
Voting with Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into cases to be heard for tonight. So this is ZBA 123-24. Randall Schumacher petitions for variance from the residential setback regulations at 64 Cherokee Hills, zoned R1, Council District 6. Here we have the zoning of the property, as well as that aerial view, and then a view of the house from the road. So we are looking at the applicable regulations for side yards. In R1, it is 10 feet. The petitioner is requesting a variance to keep a lean-to shed that has been previously built. The petitioner has stated that it has been placed for over 10 years. The petitioner recently moved the shed away from their neighbor's property line. We do have an image that shows how close or how far away that shed has been moved. And per the petitioner, the variance is necessary to park and protect their cars from the neighbor's trees, which drop tree nuts. The petitioner states the lot size is narrow, would not allow for an increase to the existing garage. According to the petitioner, the topography would not allow for parking behind the house as it slopes down. Thus, the only place possible due to the lot size and topography is to keep the lean-to in its current location. So here we have that lean-to. The picture on your left is where its original location was. The petitioner, after discovering that it was on the neighbor's property, moved it back. Here we have an image that shows that green and white stake shows where the property line is located. So that's why in this picture you can see that it's been moved back onto their property. Here we have an image of those tree nuts and also another location showing the trees and where that lean-to structure is located. We did receive at least 3 public comments in opposition. We also received a petition with, I believe, over 10 in support of the application. And we do have the petitioner's representative here in person. Do you have any questions for staff?
Do we have an aerial shot of this home to see how close it is to the next home?
Yes, let me go back to the aerial view.
And which
Yep.
side is the lean-to on?
The lean-to is approximately located here.
Is that his only driveway or garage?
Yes, this is 64 Cherokee Hills driveway into the garage.
And the other person's driveway is across their yard on the other side,
Yes,
so they're not coming in the same way at all, okay, all right.
Is the existing garage 2-car or 1-car garage?
I'm not sure. I'll let the petitioner confirm that.
All right, any more questions for the city? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so Mr. Randall Schumacher?
Petitioner Randall Schumacher, 64 Cherokee Hills. Good evening.
Good evening.
As noted, I'm asking for the variance from the residential setback. I received this survey from my neighbor. And that's what showed that I had to move the lean-to off his property. And I did so in due diligence at my expense. if possible, well, and again, I can talk about having something in
Sure.
your nuts. So it really is there to, you know, the house was built on a very narrow lot, and you can't even drive around either side of the house to get to the backyard. You're stuck. I have a one-car garage. I wish it was two-car garage, but in 1960, when they built the homes, it was a one-car garage.
You have 2 cars?
I have 2 cars,
Okay.
and I'm really stuck.
It is on your property now, wholly on your property.
That is correct.
Okay.
If you pull up the house again, if you could, Jonathan, you have that front picture of the house. You'll notice that from the street, you can't even see the lean-to because of the shrubberies and such. You'll also notice that the city attorney's office and the previous zoning board all told me I could trim back the trees. And you can notice if I was to once again hire a professional crew to come out and cut all those trees so that they don't hang over on my property, it would further irritate the neighbors and also cost me several $1,000s to have it done. It's not something I want to do, but I wanted you to notice that it's a situation in our neighborhood, and it's just something that I'm not sure how to handle it other than to have a protective cover. As mentioned before, if the topography, the house was built to the exact width of the lot, and the backyard slopes directly down at about a 65-degree angle. It goes real narrow, and the city at one point had a lawsuit years ago, but there's now a lake back there. It kind of goes down into that lake area. You can't really do much with the backyard at all. It's impossible to navigate, even to pull around behind the house to park or to build something behind there. You just can't do it. And then, if you could show the video. Do you have the video of the lawnmower? No, I thought I sent Jonathan or somebody a video.
Yeah, I don't know if our video capabilities are able to show a video.
You have a video? Okay. Well,
Mr. Shoemaker, I think that, I don't know about you guys, but I think you've proved your point in terms of that your hardship about this topography. You talked about the tree nuts, you've given us examples, so so if you don't have anything, you don't have your video, I think we've heard.
Well, I just wanted to also mention, I did at the city's request, I did get a hold of the building fire department, and what they said to approve it, I mean, would be to put up the hardy board, and if I wanted to paint it with fire retardant paint, which I'm happy to do. And the hardy board would go on the roofs part, and they said optionally you could put the fire retardant paint on it, and I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
If
No
this-
permit is required, and I have all this in an email from them, from Barry Junkin. I have that in an email.
So we wouldn't have to put that in a stipulation or anything? That's on the fire department? Okay.
Yeah, and all that's, like I said, all that's been discussed, and so I wanted to make sure if you would approve the structure that I would have to do these upgrades to it, and I'm happy to do that.
Absolutely. Any questions for Mr. Shoemaker?
You said that's a one-car garage? That's a one-car garage?
A one-car garage, yeah, and I know it looks like two, but it's not. It's a one-car garage. I would say that, I don't know for sure, but I think most of the houses in 1960, they built them with one-car garage when they built the houses out in that neighborhood.
You know how many feet across this garage, the existing garage?
Well, that driveway is 12 feet. So I'm going to say 12 feet, just based upon, normally they do driveways 10 feet, but I made it 12 feet.
And you do on this turnaround parking, just right where the trailer is?
And parking there is a problem, again, because of the trees.
He had built, prior to you coming on, Marty, he had built a shed on that, and he had to remove that shed because he couldn't have a structure in the front yard. And so, you know, we talked about behind those bushes, could you not put something there? So, all right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And I can take those back. I know you probably don't have them.
All right. So now we'll go to public comment. We have a Sarah Jane Baxter signed up.
My name is Sarah Jane Baxter. I live at 63 Cherokee Hills across the street, and I would like to speak in opposition of Mr. Schumacher's petition for the variance from the residential setback regulations on property located at 64 Cherokee Hills. Mr. Schumacher states that the lean-to shed that he built without a permit is not prohibiting or detrimental to the neighborhood and doesn't interfere with any neighbor. This is not true because it encroaches on his neighbor's property, Mr. Palmer, at number 67 Cherokee Hills. This could possibly present a problem if either owner ever decides to sell their property. I don't believe Mr. Schumacher would be happy if Mr. Palmer encroached on his property. And he really, to me, does not have the right to do that. I believe that had Mr. Schumacher applied for the proper permit to build the shed when he built it, he would have found out that based on the setback regulations, he would not be permitted to do that. But also, Mr. Schumacher states a couple of facts in his requests for the variance, to me, that are not accurate. He states that the lean-to shed has been in place for 10+ years, when in fact it was built just over 2 years ago. He and a friend built it in 2022, about August or September, and I know this because I was replacing a fence in my backyard around May of 2022, and an employee of the city came to my house to inquire about what I was building in my backyard because of a report to the city that I was building without a permit. I was told by the gentleman that I did not have to have a permit to replace the fence. Then, a few months later, Mr. Schumacher constructed his lean-to without a permit. According to the variance request submitted, the lean-to shed did not show in an aerial photo of his property in 2019. And Mr. Schumacher states that this is a single-car garage, and as you see the picture, that's not accurate. It is a double-car garage because it's just like my garage at my home across the street at 63 Cherokee Hills. I just think there's been a lot of things inaccurately reported, and for these reasons, I would like to see the variance request denied.
Thank you, Ms. Baxter. There's nobody else signed up to speak for or against. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for or against? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you can come up.
Hi, my name's Randy Palmer, John R. Palmer. I live at 67 Cherokee Hills. I live next door to Mr. Schumacher, and we'd been friends a long time prior to this. Can you go back to his complaints and let me address those? Can we pull that on the screen? Yes. I'm opposed to this variance, okay? And I can't see that. It has not been in place over 10 years, and you guys have the receipts now that will give the formal date. It's not on Google Earth. You can see that it's not there. And two, we recall, it seems like August or September of 2022 is when that structure was built. And my understanding of the variance is, or the ordinance is, there has to be a 10-foot side yard as a requirement. And I'm sure a lot of those things have to do with safety features, between properties. If there are emergencies, you've got to have room for emergency personnel, whatever. And per his detailed description here, or later in the report, Mr. Schumacher understands that there is a 10-foot setback as required, and even states that it's required for R1 single-family residential, and that's why he's requesting a variance. So he's acknowledged that. Again, had he gone for a permit, then that would have been, it would be a moot point now. But that is kind of his MO. He built an entire back room on a deck. It's still there, no permit. He used an itinerant laborer, Tim Clements, who I don't think is a registered licensed contractor here. He rewired his entire house. He gutted his house after a flooding issue. I never saw a permit. He built a structure that this board asked him to take down because it was outside the ordinance, but he left the slab, that's still there, off his driveway, where he built the structure, and he built that 2 feet on my property. He built the lean-to 2 feet on my property, and with me saying that's my property. I came in one day. Yes, there was a survey done. Yes, there was a survey done. The reason that survey was done, because I came in from lunch early one day, there was a 5-man crew by A1 Pro Tree Service, LLC, and Zachary Gober on my property, trespassing on my property, and I asked them why they're there. And they said to cut these trees. And that was all in retaliation. Those trees were not popped, they weren't throwing nuts. And he cut trees 2 feet or more on my property. And that's why the survey was necessary. I asked them, where is the property line? Yes, you may have a right to do that, but where is the property line? I had that survey done before I can mark it. Someone pulled the stakes up, requiring me to resurvey that property. That cost me money, about $1,000. And my attorney wrote him a letter saying, take it down, and reimburse him. That was not done. Instead, Mr. Schumacher wrote my attorney a letter saying, we modified it. We just
You got
cut
30
that part
seconds,
up.
okay? You got 30 seconds.
So that abuts it. I asked, he could park behind, he can get around his property. That's a 2-car garage. He parked a Buick and a Ford F-150 in it until he got a motorcycle. He can move around, he can build a properly permitted shed behind his house for the motorcycle and the lawn equipment, whatever, and that would take care of the matter. But it has to be proper. And
Thank
as
you,
far
sir.
as the slab, that needs to be, it was part of the structure that he was required to take out before and get the utility trailer out of our front, would park straight to it. And
Sir, that's your time. Thank you. We appreciate
I
it.
mentioned the safety.
Thank
And thank y'all for all you do.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this this petition? Okay, we'll close board comment. You have a rebuttal, Mr. Schumacher? Okay.
both of the speakers against my having this lean-to shed have made some inaccurate statements that need to be corrected. Number one, no permit is required. They both seem to think a permit was required for this. Building code, Barry, and the permit office have all said no permit was required. Secondly, Sarah Jane Baxter has two great big full-size garages with garage doors and also a smaller garage if you come and look at her house across the street. I do not have a two-car garage. She also said that I was encroaching on their property. I corrected from the survey I received the encroachment. I did due diligence. I cut the cement slab 4.33 inches. I moved the lean-to shed that 1.5 feet off his property. I put soil down, as you saw, and tried to make it. I would say this is a safety issue when you have the golf ball size nuts falling on your head. He brought up the issues about my house. That was done by State Farm Insurance with a licensed contractor. I don't know where they can make these kind of claims. The tree service was licensed and bonded, and the suggestion to have those trees trimmed back along the power lines was done by Alabama Power. It was done by the zoning board here, and it was also checked with the attorney's office that you could trim those tree branches that were hanging over the property. The $5,000 he claims that he's paid for the survey that he just stated, I don't know where that came from. Saying that I can drive around the side of my house, that's not true either.
20 seconds.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. We will close public comment. I think that the board has heard sufficiently in the case. City, I have a question. On the slab in the front yard, is he required to trim that, move that, or?
We haven't, that's the first time I'm hearing that it's encroaching over the property line, so we'd have to confirm that. And then if it was, we'd take further action if needed.
Would it not show up on the survey if it was encroaching?
So the image that you have there, I'm going to go back just a few.
I mean, this,
That was related to the original location, which is this image on the left, was the lean-to was on his neighbor's property. The image on
No, I'm
the
talking about the cement pad that's in the very front yard of the yard. Is there any reason he can't have that pad in his front yard?
If it's on his property, there would be no reason that it
Okay.
couldn't be
but
there.
if it was encroaching on the neighbors, I would have thought it'd been picked up on the survey. I mean, this is a survey of the property.
Possibly, yeah, we'd
I mean, you would think.
assume, yeah.
Good.
The survey you have, if you take a look at the very top, there's a small little sliver. That's 4.33 inches. And what I showed you with the Sunbelt rental, I rented a cement saw and I cut off 4.5 inches. And if you could show that with the house again, the parking area that's got the trailer on it, that was 4.33 inches onto the property according to that survey. And that was cut back 4.5 inches with a cement saw, and that cement was removed. So that parking slab now is 100% according to his survey stakes and according to the adjustment I made. And so that is on my property. And according to Emily in the office, she said that you could have parking cement like that and it would not be an encroachment.
I just want to make sure, we're not going to open that up because that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're going to vote on right now. So, Mr. Palmer, you're more than welcome to come up then. Go ahead, come on. But after this will close, we're going to close public comment on this.
The question to me, y'all, is the 10-foot side yard. You can't, if a fire were to happen, people could not get between those, where that shed is now. It abuts my property line. That is not within this 10-foot limit. And I hate all this is happening, but it continues to happen because Mr. Schumacher doesn't ask anybody anything. He does, to get this done. It's a safety hazard. He's got a 2-car garage. If he'd put something in back to put it, that's properly permitted, he would have that space. It cost me, you know, $1,000, $700 for the two surveys, $300 for an attorney fee. That was necessary because I came in and I've got people with a bobcat, a bucket truck, and 5 people to cut my trees on my property. Nobody notified me. I agree, you got it right, but that wasn't happening. There was not those big nuts falling on his trees. He cut his trees. Why did he move to a wooded lot? I'm sorry. I appreciate your time again, but if we're gonna talk, let's talk. If not, you know, is that it? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll close public comment and now go to board comment. We'll start with Mr. Eatman.
And I think the tough job that we have as ZBA is getting involved in neighborhood matters. You know, I know you all said y'all been friends for a while, and I hope at some point you all can reconcile that. But in my opinion, if it's on his property, I think he's made the adjustments to move it off the neighbor's lot. And as long as it's on his property, I mean, I'm going to be in favor.
Yeah, because we don't know the topography of the back, we're taking people's word that you can't do something else. I have a property where we are really close. The city has given permission to build onto that, but with neighbors' agreement, so. I would say being off the property is good. I don't know if we'd have permitted it before, but I agree with Joe.
You know, this is a tough discussion. You know, especially trying to tell someone what they can or cannot do with their property. Seems like he's been here a couple times in front of the board before me, and they've asked him to take structures down and move structures, and he's done that, and he's moved it off onto his property. So, I mean, I'm having, you know, very difficult time denying this one. I'm gonna be in favor.
I agree with my fellow board members. I see the hardship. He had a shed in the front of the yard. He thought that he could build, and he couldn't. He had to take it down. And so one of the thoughts was, hey, why can't you build on the side of your house? And so whether it's been there 10 years or not, I understand. Looking at this picture, it doesn't look like it's there, but that doesn't really matter at this time. I see the hardship. If he has a sloped backyard, can't really build back there. The garage looks like a 2-car garage to me, but, I don't know the size of the cars or what you're trying to do, because you can put 2 cars in, but if I can't walk around them or move, that doesn't necessarily work. And I do see things falling, and there are a lot of trees, and a lot of things can happen. By profession, I'm an insurance agent, and limbs hanging over somebody's house, when they fall on that person's house, then all of a sudden they could have cut them down. So I understand all that talk, and so be mindful of that people have to protect their property and do what's necessary for their property. So I do see the hardship here, and I'm in favor.
I agree with other board members. I do see a hardship. The only thing I would add is that the petitioner follows the recommendation of the fire marshal or fire chief as it pertains to the particular type of wood or paint that needs to be used. I'm in favor.
Okay, so at this time, we'll close board comments. I'll read the petition. ZBA-123-24, Randall Schumacher, petitions for a variance from the residential setback regulations on the property located at 64 Cherokee Hill, zoned R1, Council District 6, voting with Mr. Eatman.
Yes.
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 Motion approved. At this time, Mr. Gilliam will recuse himself.
We'll take just a moment to let Mr. Gilliam leave the room. All right, so our last case of the night, ZBA 12424, George Pate and Christy Wyatt, petition for a variance from the residential setback regulations at 94 Brookhaven, zoned R2, Council District 6. Here we have the zoning of the property as well as that aerial view. And then this is a view of the house from the road. Looking at the applicable regulations, required front yard 20 feet for this R2 zone property. The petitioner is requesting a variance to construct an open-air carport. It will be built to the west side of the existing house. Per the petitioners, the new owners almost hit someone backing out of their existing driveway. The new driveway will be built further away from the Hargrove Road intersection. And per the petitioner, the carport will match other carports in the area. So again, here we have the primary structure, and then this is looking at actually the new driveway, which you can see a little bit clearer in this site plan. So the petitioner did receive a permit. After it was looked into a little bit further, realized that the carport was projecting into the front yard. So that is why they're here before you tonight. So what they are requesting to do, remove the driveway to the north. That new driveway will house the carport. And as you can see from the setbacks, it is encroaching into the front yard. This was also reviewed by staff. We did not receive any public comment for this request. We do have the representative here in person. You have any questions for staff?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Pate and Christy Wyatt.
I'm neither Mr. Pate or Miss Christy White. Good evening, I'm Chris Senzel, Engineering. I represent Mr. Pate and Ms. White.
If you'll give us your address, please.
639 Black Bears Way, Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, what had happened is they had received a permit after they purchased the house. Mr. Pate went to the house to assess what he wanted to do to it and was backing out of the existing drive, and it is incredibly too close to Hargrove Road. And he almost backed out in the wrong spot. So he decided to petition the city, or to get a permit from the city to put a new driveway in with a carport, which he did. The city, after inspecting, said we probably need a site plan, and when we did that, we realized the house, which was, I'm assuming, but it was close to the 1950s when the house was built originally, so it predates any zoning, so, with Brookhaven. So what we're asking is, since he purchased the house and the previous owner had enclosed a single-car garage before he bought the house and made it a den, they put can I use the board? Do I just touch it? Right here, there's a door that the previous owner installed, and that's how they enter the house now instead of the front. So we can do it without the carport. However, a house without a carport is, the elements and everything else. And what we're doing is really is very consistent with other houses along that same street. So.
Any more?
Oh, not currently. That's where the pictures was, but that it is our intention to remove the driveway once the renovations have completed.
Any other questions? The house looks great. I pass by it every day. It looks really good.
Is it really? I haven't even seen it after the survey. So yeah, thank you. I'll tell Mr. Pate.
It looks good. All right. All right. Is there there's no one signed up to speak for or against. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak for or against this petition? All right, at this time, we'll close public comment and go to board comment with Mr. Eatman.
And I see the hardship, and I don't have an issue with this petition.
Definitely a hardship, and I think safety is paramount, so support.
I agree with my fellow board members. I do see the hardship in backing out, and it does need to be moved, and it'll be better for the home.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. I'm in favor. I do see a hardship.
Okay. At this time, we'll close board comment. I'll read the petition. ZBA-124-24, George Pate and Christy Wyatt petition for a variance from the residential setback regulations on the property located at 94 Brookhaven, Zone R2, Council District 6. Voting with Mr. Eatman.
Yes.
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 Petition approved. Thank you.